The massive ship appeared without warning above Earth's moon. It was the size of a small city, black as space itself, with strange symbols glowing along its hull. The ship didn't try to hide. It simply sat there, waiting. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the orbital defense station, watching the alien vessel through her telescope. Her hands were steady, but her heart was racing. This was first contact. After centuries of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they finally had their answer. The alien ship sent a message. It came in perfect English, which made everyone nervous. How did they know human languages? How long had they been watching? People of Earth, the message began. I am Ambassador Vexhai of the Zephyrian Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. We come to deliver an important message to your species. Sarah looked at her communications officer. Patch me through to Earth Command, they need to hear this. Within minutes, every major leader on Earth was listening. The President of the United Earth Government, military commanders, and scientists, all gathered in the main communication center in Geneva. The message continued. Your species has been discovered and evaluated. The Galactic Council has ruled over this galaxy for 50,000 years. We maintain peace and order among 847 different alien races. Now, humanity must choose its place in this order. The alien's voice was calm and cold. It spoke like someone reading a grocery list, not delivering news that would change human history forever. The choice is simple. You will pay tribute to the Galactic Council. Every year, you will give us 60% of your planet's resources. You will provide 100,000 humans to work in our labor camps. Your military will be destroyed. Your leaders will report to council governors. In return, your species will be allowed to exist. Sarah felt sick to her stomach. She looked around the room. The other officers had the same shocked expressions on their faces. You have 30 standard galactic days to decide. This is not a negotiation. This is an order. Every species gets the same choice. Submit or be destroyed. 12,000 species have refused this offer. None of them exist anymore. The message ended with coordinates for Earth's reply and a deadline. 30 days. Then the ship simply vanished, leaving Earth's leaders staring at empty space. President Martinez spoke first. How many people heard this message? Everyone with a radio, sir, came the reply. It was broadcast on every frequency at once. The whole planet knows. The next few days were chaos. Some people panicked and tried to flee to the outer colonies. Others demanded that Earth fight, no matter the cost. Religious groups said it was the end times. Scientists worked around the clock to study the alien technology they had seen. Dr. James Wright, Earth's top physicist, gave his report to the Emergency Council. Their ship used technology we don't understand. They appeared and disappeared without any energy signature we could detect. If they wanted to destroy us right now, we probably couldn't stop them. General Lisa Rodriguez, head of Earth's military, disagreed. We've been preparing for alien contact for decades. Our weapons might be different from theirs, but that doesn't mean they're useless. Sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones. What are you suggesting? President Martinez asked. I'm saying we don't know how strong they really are. Maybe they're powerful. Maybe they're just bullies who pick on weak species. We won't know until we test them. Dr. Wright shook his head. They said they've destroyed 12,000 species. That's not bluffing. That's genocide on a scale we can't imagine. Or maybe, General Rodriguez replied, it's a lie meant to scare us into giving up without a fight. The debate went on for hours, then days. Meanwhile, reports came in from Earth's colonies. Mars had declared they would follow Earth's decision. The asteroid mining station said the same. The outer colonies were further away and harder to contact, but the messages that got through all said the same thing. Humanity would stand together. Sarah Chen found herself in charge of gathering intelligence about the aliens. It wasn't much to work with. The ship had appeared for exactly 1 hour and 37 minutes. Their scanners had picked up some basic information, but nothing useful for fighting. What do we know about their weapons? She asked her team. Nothing, Lieutenant Torres replied. They didn't power up any weapon systems while they were here. Either they're very confident or they were just delivering a message and leaving. What about their numbers? How many ships do they have? Unknown. They mentioned 800 different alien species in their council. If each species contributes ships to their fleet, we could be looking at thousands or millions of vessels. Sarah stared at the data on her screen. It painted a grim picture. Earth had about 300 military ships scattered across the solar system. Most were designed for fighting other humans, not aliens with unknown technology. But something bothered her about the alien message. It had been too smooth, too practiced. Like something they had said many times before. The aliens weren't trying to understand humanity. They weren't interested in negotiation or cultural exchange. They just wanted submission. "Lieutenant," she said, "pull up the historical files on Earth's wars." "Which ones, Captain?" "All of them. I want to see how humans react when someone tries to conquer them." The files made for interesting reading. Throughout human history there was a pattern. When faced with overwhelming odds, humans had two responses. Either they gave up immediately, or they fought with desperate determination that often surprised their enemies. The Romans thought the Germanic tribes would be easy to conquer. The British thought the American colonists would never rebel. The Nazis thought the Soviet Union would collapse in weeks. History was full of powerful forces that underestimated human stubbornness, but history was also full of civilizations that had been conquered and absorbed. The question was, which type of humans were they? Sarah brought her findings to the Emergency Council. "I think the aliens are making an assumption about us," she said. "They think we're like the other species they've conquered, but they don't understand human psychology." "Explain," President Martinez said. "Every war in human history has taught us something important. We get stronger when we're threatened, we unify when we're attacked, and we never forget when someone tries to enslave us." Dr. Wright interrupted. "That's very inspiring, Captain, but inspiration doesn't stop alien weapons." "Maybe not," Sarah replied, "but it stopped a lot of human weapons over the years." The debate continued, but Sarah could see minds changing. The initial panic was wearing off, replaced by something harder and more dangerous. Anger. She thought about her grandfather, who had fought in the resource wars. He used to tell her stories about impossible battles and desperate victories. "The thing about humans," he would say, "is that we're at our best when everything looks hopeless." As the deadline approached, Sarah found herself wondering what the aliens expected. Did they think humans would beg? Did they think Earth would surrender without a fight? She suspected they were about to find out something important about humanity, something that might surprise them. The 30 days were almost up. Soon, Earth would have to give its answer. Sarah had a feeling it wouldn't be the answer the Galactic Council was expecting. The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime were a sight to behold. The massive dome could hold representatives from all 847 member species. Today it was packed. Everyone wanted to witness humanity's surrender. Ambassador Vexhai stood at the center podium, his tall, thin form casting strange shadows under the artificial lights. His people, the Zephyrians, had been the first to join the Council 50,000 years ago. They had seen every species make this choice. They knew how it always ended. "Honored members," Vexhai announced, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "We gathered today to witness another species join our great galactic order. The humans of Earth have had their 30 days to consider our generous offer." Murmurs of amusement rippled through the crowd. The word generous was always a joke when applied to the tribute system. 60% of resources, 100,000 slaves, and complete military surrender. It was designed to break a species' will to resist. High Counselor Thanek of the Dominion spoke from his floating platform. "What do we know of these humans, Ambassador? Are they likely to resist?" "Unlikely," Vexhai replied. "Our scouts report they have primitive technology. Chemical rockets, kinetic weapons, no psychic abilities. They have spread to a few nearby star systems, but their expansion has been slow and inefficient. They appear to be a typical Type 2 civilization." That got nods of approval from around the chamber. Type 2 civilizations always surrendered. They were advanced enough to understand the hopelessness of their situation, but not advanced enough to pose any real threat. "Besides," Vexhai continued, They have only had 30 days to prepare. Most species spend the entire time in panic or denial. By now, their leaders are probably fighting among themselves about whether to surrender completely or try to negotiate better terms. More laughter echoed through the chamber. Every species tried to negotiate. None had ever succeeded. The deadline passed exactly 1 hour ago, HFY announced. Their response should arrive at any moment. As if summoned by his words, a communication alert chimed through the chamber. A holographic display appeared above the central podium, showing an incoming message from the Sol system. "Here we are," HFY said with satisfaction. "Let us see which type of surrender speech they have chosen. Will it be the begging type, the defiant but hopeless type, or perhaps the we submit but demand honor type?" He activated the message. The hologram flickered and resolved into text. The entire chamber fell silent as they read it. The message was short. Impossibly short. Just one word in clear galactic standard. No. The silence stretched on. HFY stared at the hologram as if it had malfunctioned. He checked the translation systems, then checked them again. The word remained the same, no? High Counselor Thanek leaned forward in his platform. "Is this a translation error, Ambassador?" No, the translation is correct." HFY's voice had lost its confident tone. "But this cannot be their entire response. Where is the rest of the message? Where are the conditions, the pleas for mercy, the attempts at negotiation?" He frantically checked the communication logs. There was no additional data, no attached files, no follow-up transmissions scheduled, just that single word. "This is unprecedented," muttered Counselor Zarthek of the Archive Collective. "In 50,000 years of galactic civilization, no species has ever responded so briefly." The chamber erupted in confused chatter. Representatives from dozens of species spoke at once, their translation implants creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. "Silence." Thanek's voice boomed over the noise. "Ambassador HFY, contact this human government immediately. Demand clarification. This must be some sort of cultural misunderstanding." HFY's hands shook slightly as he composed a response. "To the human government of Earth. Your previous message was unclear. The Galactic Council requires a complete response to our tribute offer. Please clarify your species' decision regarding submission to Council authority." The message was sent through the quantum communication network. It would reach Earth in minutes. The response came back even faster than expected. Another short message appeared on the holographic display. "We said no. Come and take it." This time, the silence in the chamber was absolute. 847 species, billions of individuals with collective knowledge spanning millennia, had never heard anything like this. HFY read the message 3 times before speaking. They are telling us to come and take it, as if they intend to resist. Impossible, High Counselor Thanek declared. They are a Type 2 civilization. They cannot seriously believe they can fight the entire Galactic Council. Counselor Mirando of the Archive Collective raised a tentacle. Permission to speak, High Counselor? Granted. I have been reviewing the intelligence reports on humanity while we waited for their response. There are concerning elements in their history, such as they appear to have never been successfully conquered. In their recorded history, every attempt at permanent subjugation has eventually failed. They have a disturbing tendency to continue fighting even when victory is mathematically impossible. Admiral Korthak of the Hegemony laughed. Primitive species often fight beyond reason. It changes nothing. We have conquered thousands of worlds with warrior cultures. They all break eventually. That is not what concerns me, Mirando continued. What concerns me is that humanity appears to grow stronger from conflict. Each war in their history has led to rapid technological advancement and increased unity. They do not simply fight wars. They perfect the art of war. Irrelevant, Korthak snapped. No amount of perfection can overcome 100-to-1 technological advantage. HFY was still staring at the human message. Something about it bothered him deeply. The tone was wrong. When species decided to resist, they usually sent long, passionate speeches about freedom and honor. They made threats or appeals to reason or desperate offers of alliance. But this was different. Come and take it wasn't a threat or a plea. It was an invitation, as if the humans were confident in their ability to resist. High Counselor, HFY said slowly, I recommend we gather more intelligence before taking action. These humans may be more dangerous than our initial assessment suggested. Dangerous? Thanek's voice dripped with contempt. Ambassador, you are allowing yourself to be intimidated by primitive aliens who use chemical rockets and metal projectiles. They have no energy weapons, no shielding technology, no psychic abilities. What exactly do you think they can do to us? Vexhai had no answer for that. By every logical measure, humanity should be helpless against the Council's technology. But something about their response suggested they didn't see it that way. Perhaps, suggested Councillor Veltar of the Trade Union, we should simply destroy one of their smaller colonies as a demonstration. That usually brings stubborn species to their senses. Murmurs of agreement came from around the chamber. It was standard procedure. One small attack to show the aliens what they were facing, then another chance to surrender before the real war began. The vote, then, Thanek announced. All in favor of authorizing a demonstration strike against a human colony? Hands, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the chamber. The vote was nearly unanimous. Admiral Korthak, you may select a suitable target and deploy one battle group. Make it swift and decisive. Korthak's predatory grin was visible even through his environmental suit. It will be my pleasure, High Counselor. These humans will learn what happens to species that say no to the Galactic Council. As the chamber began to empty, Counselor Mirando remained at her station, reviewing the human message one more time. Something about it reminded her of other historical records she had studied. Ancient species that had faced impossible odds and somehow survived. But those were just stories. Legends from the early days of galactic civilization, when the Council was still learning how to manage primitive species. Still, she made a note to research human military history more thoroughly. It was probably nothing, but something about that simple word no made her nervous. After all, in 50,000 years of galactic history, no species had ever said it quite like that. Counselor Mirando had not slept in 3 days. Her species only needed 4 hours of rest per cycle, but she had been working non-stop since the human response arrived. Something about it nagged at her, like a piece of data that didn't fit the pattern. Her office in the Archive Collective was filled with holographic displays showing information about humanity. Star charts, technology assessments, biological data, and most importantly, historical records. What she found made her more nervous with each passing hour. Computer. Display human expansion pattern over the last 500 Earth years, she said. The hologram showed the Sol system and surrounding space. Slowly, red dots began appearing as human colonies spread outward. At first it looked normal. Typical expansion for a developing spacefaring species. But Mirando noticed something odd. The humans weren't expanding randomly. They weren't just looking for the closest habitable worlds. They were being strategic. Mining colonies were placed to control key resources. Military outposts were positioned to guard important trade routes. Civilian settlements were located to support both military and industrial operations. Computer. Compare this pattern to Zephyrian expansion during their early spacefaring period. The comparison was startling. The Zephyrians had simply grabbed every world they could reach. It had taken them 2,000 years to organize their territory efficiently. The humans had done it from the beginning. Show me their military technology development. This was where things got really interesting. Human weapons were indeed primitive by galactic standards, but they weren't randomly primitive. Every design choice seemed intentional. Their kinetic weapons were simple, but they were also reliable and easy to manufacture. Their chemical rockets were slow, but they required no exotic materials and could be built quickly. Their armor was basic, but it was designed to be repaired in the field with common tools. It was as if the humans had deliberately chosen technology that prioritized availability over performance. As if they expected to need a lot of it very quickly, Mirando called up another display. Show me human population distribution across their colonies. More red flags appeared. Most species concentrated their populations on their homeworld and a few major colonies. Humans were spreading out. Every colony had significant population centers. Every settlement was designed to be self-sufficient. They weren't just expanding into space. They were dispersing, making themselves harder to destroy. Computer, analyze human historical conflicts. Focus on asymmetric warfare scenarios. This was where Mirando's concern turned to alarm. Human history was full of conflicts where smaller forces had defeated larger ones, not through superior technology but through better strategy. higher motivation, and sheer stubbornness. The display showed dozens of examples. Small groups of humans holding off vastly superior enemies. Entire armies defeated by clever tactics and desperate determination. Most disturbing of all, humans had a pattern of turning initial defeats into eventual victories. Computer, cross-reference with galactic conquest patterns. Show me species that successfully resisted council integration. The result was a very short list. In 50,000 years, only 12 species had attempted serious resistance. All had been destroyed. But Miranda noticed something interesting about the timeline. The most successful resistance had come from species with certain characteristics. They were dispersed across multiple worlds. They had simple, reliable technology that could be mass-produced. They fought asymmetrically, avoiding direct confrontation while striking at vulnerable targets. Humans had all of these characteristics, and they had something else that worried Miranda even more. Computer analyze human unification patterns during external threats. The historical data was clear. Throughout their history, humans had a tendency to unify rapidly when faced with outside threats. Internal conflicts that had raged for generations would suddenly stop when an external enemy appeared. Resources that had been wasted on internal competition would be immediately redirected to the common threat. Miranda was studying this pattern when her communication system chimed. Admiral Korthak's image appeared on her screen. Counselor Miranda, I understand you have been researching these humans. I wanted to inform you that I have selected a target for our demonstration. Which target, Admiral? A mining colony called Kepler Station. It has about 10,000 human civilians and appears to be defended by a single orbital platform, perfect for showing them the futility of resistance. Miranda felt a chill run through her. Admiral, I strongly recommend delaying this attack until we have more intelligence. More intelligence? Korthak laughed. Counselor, we are talking about a species that still uses gunpowder. What more do we need to know? Their history suggests they may be more formidable than our assessments indicate. History is written by the victors, Counselor, and these humans have never faced anything like the Galactic Council. My battle group will depart in 6 hours. By tomorrow, these upstart primitives will understand the price of defiance. The connection ended. Miranda immediately tried to contact High Counselor Thanek, but he was in closed session with the military committee. She sent an urgent message requesting the attack be delayed, but received an automatic reply that her concerns had been noted and filed. Frustrated, she returned to her research. If the humans were as dangerous as she suspected, Admiral Korthak was about to make a serious mistake. Computer, show me detailed information about Kepler Station. The data was limited. The colony had been established 15 years ago to mine rare metals from the system's asteroid belt. Population 9847 humans. Defenses, 1 orbital platform with unknown weapon systems. On the surface, it looked like an easy target, but Miranda had learned not to trust surface appearances when dealing with humans. Computer, analyze the placement of Kepler Station within human territory. The star map showed something interesting. Kepler Station wasn't just a mining colony. It was positioned at a strategic choke point along one of the main trade routes between human systems. If someone wanted to attack the inner human colonies, they would have to pass near Kepler Station. That suggested the humans had expected this attack, or at least they had prepared for the possibility. Computer, show me construction records for the orbital platform at Kepler Station. The data was fragmentary, but what little information the Council had gathered painted a picture of a structure that was much more substantial than it appeared. The platform had been built with redundant power systems, thick armor plating, and what looked like extensive manufacturing facilities. Why would a mining colony need manufacturing facilities? Miranda was beginning to understand. The humans hadn't just built a space station. They had built a fortress that could produce its own weapons and supplies. Even worse, they had disguised it as a civilian mining operation. She tried again to contact the High Counselor, but was told he was unavailable. Admiral Korthak's battle group was already preparing to depart. In desperation, Miranda accessed the secure military channels and sent a message directly to the Admiral's ship. Admiral, I have urgent intelligence about the target. Kepler Station may be a military installation disguised as a civilian colony. I strongly recommend reconsidering this attack. The reply came back quickly. Your concerns are noted, Counselor. However, the operation is already in motion. We will be careful not to underestimate these primitives. Mirando stared at the screen in frustration. She had spent decades studying galactic history. She knew the warning signs of a species that was more dangerous than it appeared, but no one would listen. She pulled up one final display. Computer, show me the historical pattern of first contact conflicts between the Council and resistant species. The data was sobering. In every case, the Council's first military action had been successful. Overwhelming force had crushed the primitive aliens quickly and efficiently. But in the few cases where species had mounted serious resistance, the pattern had been different. The initial victories had been followed by increasingly difficult battles. The primitive species had learned from each defeat, adapting their tactics and improving their technology. What had started as easy conquests had turned into prolonged conflicts, and in every case, the turning point had come when the Council realized they were no longer fighting the same enemy they had initially encountered. War had a way of transforming species, especially humans. Mirando made one last attempt to warn the Council. She sent a formal report to the Archive Collective's central database, flagging humanity as a potential major threat. The report would be reviewed eventually, but not until after Admiral Korthak's attack. She settled back in her chair and waited. In 12 hours, they would know whether her fears were justified. She hoped she was wrong. She hoped the humans were just another primitive species that would crumble at the first show of force. But deep in her research-trained mind, she suspected that Admiral Korthak was about to learn something important about human nature, something that would change the Council's understanding of this strange species forever. The attack on Kepler Station would be a test. Not just of human defenses, but of human character. And if Mirando's research was correct, the Galactic Council was about to discover that some tests can be very dangerous to conduct. Admiral Korthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath, watching the long-range sensors as they approached the Kepler system. 50 ships of the line followed behind him, the most advanced warships in the galaxy. Each vessel carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Against a single human mining station, it was like using a sledgehammer to swat a fly. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, we are detecting the target. One orbital platform, exactly as intelligence reported. No other military vessels in the system. Korthak studied the sensor data. The human station was large for a mining operation, but it looked exactly like what it claimed to be. Solar collectors, ore processing facilities, and what appeared to be living quarters for the miners. A single defensive platform orbited nearby, bristling with primitive weapons. Any response from the humans? He asked. Yes, sir. They are broadcasting on standard frequencies. Text message only. Display it. The message appeared on the main screen. This is Commander Sarah Chen of Kepler Station. You are entering human space without permission. State your intentions, Korthak laughed. The human was asking him to state his intentions, as if she had any right to demand answers from the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Open a channel, he ordered. Let me speak to this Commander Chen. The communication link established quickly. The main screen showed a human female in a simple military uniform. She looked calm, which surprised Korthak. Most species showed fear when faced with a Council battle group. I am Admiral Korthak of the Galactic Council, he announced. You have been selected for a demonstration of Council power. Your colony will be destroyed as an example to your species. You have 1 hour to evacuate civilian personnel. Commander Chen's expression didn't change. Admiral, I respectfully decline your offer. Kepler Station will not be evacuated, and we will not surrender. You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. Your species has refused to submit to Council authority. The destruction of your colony is inevitable. I am offering you a chance to save civilian lives. And I'm telling you that won't be necessary, Chen replied. We'll handle this ourselves. The communication ended. Korthak stared at the blank screen in disbelief. The human had just told him that she would handle an attack by 50 Council warships. The arrogance was staggering. Tactical, he called. Begin the attack. Target the station's power core first. Make it quick and clean. Yes, sir. All ships move to attack formation. The Council battle group spread out, surrounding Kepler Station like predators circling wounded prey. Each ship powered up its weapon systems, energy cannons that could melt through any known armor. Sir, the tactical officer called. The human station is powering up something. Energy readings are climbing rapidly. Defensive shields? Unknown, sir. The energy signature doesn't match any known shielding technology. Korthak frowned. Fire a warning shot. Target their communication array. The nearest council ship fired a single energy beam at the station's communication tower. The beam struck the target and simply vanished. No explosion, no damage, no effect at all. Sir, the tactical officer said, voice rising with confusion. The beam was absorbed. I'm reading no damage to the target. Impossible. Fire again, full power. This time, 3 ships fired simultaneously. 3 brilliant energy beams converged on the human station. Again, they simply disappeared on contact. What kind of shielding is this? Korthak demanded. Sir, I don't think it's shielding. The energy isn't being deflected or dissipated. It's being absorbed and redirected somewhere. Before Korthak could respond, the human station fired back. But instead of the primitive kinetic weapons they expected, it unleashed streams of pure energy. The same energy the council ships had just fired at it. The beam struck the nearest council vessel with devastating effect. The ship's shields collapsed instantly and holes were burned through its hull. Atmosphere vented into space as the crew scrambled for emergency stations. How are they doing this? Korthak shouted. His science officer was frantically working at her console. Admiral, I think I understand. They're not using energy weapons at all. They're using some kind of energy conversion system. They're taking our attacks and throwing them back at us. The realization hit Korthak like a physical blow. The humans had built a station that turned council weapons against themselves. Every shot fired at them became ammunition for their counterattack. All ships switched to kinetic weapons, he ordered. The council ships launched missiles and projectile weapons at the station. This time, the human defenses responded differently. Point defense systems activated, shooting down incoming missiles with rapid-fire cannons. Projectiles were intercepted by clouds of metallic chaff that shredded them before impact. But the humans weren't content to just defend. Their station began launching its own weapons. Simple, crude missiles that shouldn't have been a threat to advanced council ships, except they worked. The human missiles were designed differently from council weapons. Instead of sophisticated guidance systems, they used brute force and overwhelming numbers. Instead of exotic warheads, they carried simple nuclear explosives that were cheap and easy to manufacture. And instead of targeting the council ships directly, they targeted the space around them. The missiles detonated in coordinated patterns, creating overlapping fields of radiation and electromagnetic interference that played havoc with council sensors and navigation systems. Sir, the tactical officer reported, we're losing sensor contact with multiple ships. The human weapons are jamming our communication networks. Korthak watched in growing alarm as his perfect battle formation dissolved into chaos. Ships collided with each other as their navigation systems failed. Weapons fire went wild as targeting computers malfunctioned. The humans had turned the Council's technological superiority into a weakness. Sir, emergency signal from the Eternal Victory. They've been boarded. Boarded? How is that possible? Unknown, sir. The signal cut off mid-transmission. Through the chaos, Korthak could see human fighters launching from hidden bays in the station. They were small, fast ships that looked like they were built from scrap metal. But they moved with purpose, striking at vulnerable points on Council vessels. The human fighters didn't try to engage in dogfights. Instead, they used hit-and-run tactics, damaging critical systems and then retreating before the Council ships could respond. They targeted engines, leaving ships dead in space. They destroyed communication arrays, isolating vessels from the fleet. They even landed troops on Council ships, something that hadn't happened in galactic warfare for thousands of years. Admiral, his communications officer called. We're receiving a transmission from Commander Chen. The human appeared on screen again, still calm despite the battle raging around her station. Admiral Korthak, you have lost 12 ships and damaged 30 others. I recommend you withdraw before this gets worse. Gets worse? Korthak snarled. You're fighting with scrap metal and primitive weapons. Yes, Chen replied. But we're fighting smart. Your ships are designed to fight other advanced civilizations using similar technology. We're not an advanced civilization. We're something else entirely. As if to prove her point, the human station fired again. This time it wasn't energy weapons or missiles. It was something much simpler and infinitely more terrifying. Chunks of raw metal, accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic launchers. Simple kinetic projectiles that Council sensors had trouble tracking because they had no energy signatures. They struck Council ships like meteors, punching through advanced armor as if it were paper. Sir, the tactical officer said urgently, I recommend immediate withdrawal. We've lost 23 ships. The remaining vessels are taking heavy damage. Korthak stared at the display showing his decimated fleet. 50 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy, reduced to scrap by a single human mining station using weapons that any primitive civilization could build. How long has this battle lasted? He asked. 73 minutes, sir. 73 minutes. In just over an hour, the humans had destroyed nearly half of his fleet. At this rate, his entire force would be wiped out within 3 hours. Sir, the communications officer called. Incoming transmission from High Counselor Thane Eck. The High Counselor's image appeared on screen, his expression grim. Admiral, what is your status? Sir, we have encountered unexpected resistance. The human defenses are more sophisticated than anticipated. Sophisticated, Admiral. Our sensor stations are detecting massive energy expenditures from your position. Are you engaged in a full-scale battle? Korthak hesitated. How could he explain that his entire battle group was being destroyed by a mining station? Sir, I recommend reinforcements. These humans appear to have capabilities that were not included in our intelligence reports. Admiral, you have 50 ships of the line against a single primitive space station. Either you are grossly incompetent, or we have seriously underestimated these humans. Before Korthak could respond, another alarm sounded. Sir, the humans are launching another wave of fighters. And sir, they're targeting our retreat routes. The realization hit Korthak like a physical blow. The humans weren't just defending their station. They were trying to prevent his fleet from escaping. They wanted to destroy every council ship in the system. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the Chamber's 50,000-year history. Representatives from 847 species sat in shocked silence as Admiral Korthak's report played on the main display. 3 ships. Out of 50, only 3 had managed to escape the battle at Kepler Station. The Admiral himself had been forced to abandon his flagship when human boarders captured the bridge. He now stood before the Council, his uniform torn and his pride shattered. 47 ships destroyed, High Counselor Thanek repeated, his voice hollow. By a single mining station? It wasn't just a mining station, Korthak said quietly. It was a fortress. They had been preparing for us. Counselor Mirando rose from her position. Throughout the Admiral's report, she had remained silent, but her research displays had been working constantly. Now she had information that made the situation far worse than anyone realized. High Counselor, I request permission to present my findings. Granted, though I suspect we are beyond the point where intelligence might help us. Mirando's data appeared on the Chamber's main display. Star charts, population figures, industrial capacity reports, and most importantly, military analyses that painted a terrifying picture. Honored members, Kepler Station was not an anomaly. It was a standard example of human defensive strategy. My research shows that humanity has been preparing for galactic contact for decades. Every colony, every station, every settlement has been designed with defense in mind. The display showed human space in detail. What had looked like scattered mining colonies and agricultural settlements now revealed their true nature. Each was positioned to support the others. Supply lines were redundant and well protected. Industrial facilities were dispersed to prevent single-point failures. But more troubling than their defensive preparations, Mirando continued, is their industrial capacity. When we first evaluated humanity, we estimated their total military production at approximately 300 vessels. That estimate was catastrophically wrong. New numbers appeared on the display: ship construction statistics, resource allocation data, and manufacturing capability assessments. The numbers were staggering. Current human military production capacity is estimated at 1,500 new vessels per standard galactic month, and that number is increasing rapidly. They are not just building ships. They are building shipyards. They are building the capacity to build capacity. Shocked murmurs ran through the chamber. 1,500 ships per month was more than most galactic civilizations built in a century. How is this possible? Demanded Counselor Veltar. They are a primitive species. Their technology is crude. Their technology is not crude, Mirando corrected. It is optimized. Every design choice they have made prioritizes production speed and resource efficiency over individual unit performance. A human fighter craft costs 1/10 as much to build as a council equivalent. It performs at perhaps 60% effectiveness. but they can build 15 of them for every one of ours. The implications were sinking in throughout the chamber. Individual technological superiority meant nothing if the enemy could field overwhelming numbers. Furthermore, Mirando continued, human tactical doctrine appears to be based on this principle. They do not seek individual superiority. They seek systemic advantage. At Kepler Station, they did not try to build better weapons than ours. They built weapons that turned our advantages against us. Admiral Korthak nodded grimly. Their energy absorption system was ingenious. Every shot we fired at them became ammunition for their counterattack. The more force we used, the more force they could return. This suggests, Mirando said, that humanity has studied Council military doctrine extensively. They know our capabilities, our strategies, our weaknesses. They have been preparing specifically to fight us. High Counselor Thanek's voice was strained. Counselor Mirando, what is your assessment of human military capability? Based on current data, if humanity were to mobilize their full industrial capacity for war, they could field approximately 50,000 vessels within one galactic standard year. These would not be individual matches for Council ships, but they would not need to be. The chamber erupted in panicked chatter. 50,000 ships was larger than the entire Council fleet, and that was just humanity's potential production in a single year. However, Mirando continued, raising her voice above the noise, that is not what concerns me most. Silence fell again as the representatives realized there was something even worse coming. What concerns me most is that we have underestimated human psychology. The attack on Kepler Station was intended to demoralize them, to show them the futility of resistance. Instead, it appears to have had the opposite effect. New data appeared on the display, communication intercepts from human space, analyzed and translated by the Council's best xenopsychologists. Since the battle at Kepler Station, human activity has increased dramatically. Military recruitment has risen by 300%. Industrial production has been redirected entirely to military applications. Most concerning of all, internal conflicts within human space have completely ceased. Counselor Zarthek leaned forward. What do you mean internal conflicts have ceased? Humans have historically been a fractious species, with constant competition between different groups and factions. Our attack has unified them completely. They are no longer thinking as separate colonies or nations. They are thinking as a single species under threat. The display showed intercepts of human communications, military orders, resource allocation directives, and civilian messages all pointed to the same conclusion. Humanity was mobilizing for total war. But perhaps most troubling, Mirando said, is this final intercept. It was broadcast on all human frequencies following the battle. The display showed a simple text message. They wanted to see what we do to those who threaten our people. Now they know. This was us being gentle. The chamber fell into absolute silence. For 50,000 years, the Galactic Council had maintained order through overwhelming force. No species had ever survived a demonstration of Council power. No species had ever threatened retaliation. High Counselor Thanek spoke slowly. Are you saying, Counselor Mirando, that humanity is declaring war on the entire Galactic Council? I am saying, High Counselor, that humanity never accepted our authority in the first place. They said no to our tribute demand. They meant it, and now they are preparing to enforce that refusal. Admiral Korthak stepped forward. High Counselor, I must report additional intelligence from the battle. The human commander, this Sarah Chen, she spoke to me as if this was only the beginning, as if Kepler Station was just a test of our capabilities. A test. She seemed confident that they could handle anything we sent against them. Not hopeful, confident, as if they had already planned for every possible Council response. Mirando nodded. This aligns with my research into human military history. They have a pattern of allowing enemies to attack first, learning from the initial contact and then developing overwhelming countermeasures. They used this strategy successfully against more technologically advanced opponents throughout their history. But we are not just more technologically advanced, Thanek protested. We are 847 different species with combined knowledge spanning millennia. Yes, Mirando replied. And that may be our weakness. We are used to fighting species like ourselves, highly advanced civilizations that fight according to established rules of galactic warfare. Humanity does not follow those rules. They fight to win, using any method necessary. The chamber began to buzz with worried conversations. Representatives who had spent centuries assuming council supremacy were beginning to understand that they might be facing something unprecedented. "What do you recommend?" Thanek asked. Mirando hesitated. In all her years of research, she had never faced a situation like this.
High Counselor, I believe we have 3 options.
First, we could mobilize the entire council fleet and attempt to destroy humanity before they complete their military buildup. And the second option, we could attempt to negotiate. Offer them membership in the council as equals rather than as subjects. Absolutely not, Admiral Korthak interjected. The council does not negotiate with primitives. The third option? Thanek asked. Mirando's voice was barely above a whisper. We could leave them alone. Mark human space as forbidden territory and warn all council species to avoid contact. The chamber erupted in outraged protests. The idea of the Galactic Council avoiding any species was unthinkable. It went against 50,000 years of precedent. But as the protest died down, a new sound could be heard. Quiet conversations as representatives began to calculate the cost of a war with humanity. The resources required, the ships that would be lost, the uncertainty of victory against an enemy that had already proven they could defeat council forces. High Counselor Thanek called for order. This session is adjourned pending further analysis. All military commanders will report fleet readiness within 6 hours. All intelligence services will provide complete assessments of human capabilities within 12 hours. As the chamber began to empty, Mirando remained at her station, staring at the data she had compiled.